you very much for the kind introduction, and thank you very much to the organizers for inviting me. It's a great honor to be here. I will talk about feedback control in online advertising and in new media in general, as a matter of fact. I will explain in a few minutes what feedback control is, but you may think about it as a sub-discipline of machine learning or artificial intelligence, but with a much longer tradition. First, something about myself. So I work in the research and development department of AOL, based out of Palo Alto here in Silicon Valley. The responsibility of me and my team is to develop algorithms for optimization, control, and forecasting of online advertising and content distribution. In my previous life, I worked in mobile robotics and developed navigation and control algorithms in that industry, and you may be surprised to know that I'm applying essentially the same techniques in online advertising that I did previously in robotics. So, see, if I can get this one to work. There, all right. So, the agenda for this brief talk is as follows. I will first explain what I mean when I say online advertising, and I will explain how delivering ad campaigns in practice works. I will thereafter define a sensible optimization problem for ad campaign management. I will discuss two solutions. One solution that I refer to as the classical solution. I will elaborate on the flaws of that approach and why we need to look for another approach. And that brings me to the feedback-based solution. I will explain in what way that does mitigate the weaknesses of the classical solution. I will give one example of actual management of an ad campaign, and I will give you my opinion about the future of feedback control in the space of online advertising. So, advertising, or online advertising in particular, is a huge business. According to eMarketer, it is this year alone almost $100 billion US business. It includes video, mobile, display, and search. And many companies that are successful have made advertising their core business model. Google and Facebook are just two of them. It's a core business model of us and many other companies. And a lot of the ad dollars that are being spent is spent through something called demand-side platforms. And the way those work is that an advertiser comes to a DSP. Ours is called AOP, which stands for Ad Learn Open Platform. And what we are doing is that we are handling that budget. They may come to us with, say, $100,000 US budget they want us to spend for them over the course of 1 month. They don't want to spend all of that money the first day or the last day, but they want to do it throughout that month in the most efficient way that will provide the best value proposition for them. And different advertisers have different objectives. Some of them are only interested in the branding. They want to reach as many different users as possible. Others may have a performance objective, which means that they want to maximize some type of engagement. It may be clicks, conversions, sales, and so forth. And if we're drilling down in more particular how the demand-side platforms work, you can think about it as follows, that if you are going surfing to a website owned by some publisher, the publisher wants to monetize on the traffic. So what they may choose to do is they may sell real estate on that web page to an open exchange. So that they are reaching out and say, who wants to serve an ad to you? And then all advertisers out there, they may, based on whatever information is available about you, which depends on the privacy setting on your browser and so forth, they may submit a bid. They say, okay, we want to pay this much for the opportunity to show an ad to you. And all of this happens in a few milliseconds. So then you may have hundreds or thousands or more advertisers that are submitting a bid for this opportunity. And the highest bidder will win this opportunity. And they will show this ad to you. And they will be charged a price that corresponds to the second highest bid. And the job for the DSP is to come up with a smart bidding strategy that will maximize some value function for this advertiser. So So when an advertiser comes to us, so that they want us to come up with this bidding strategy on their behalf, because they don't have the in-house expertise to do that. So then we are figuring out how much to bid for different type of users for them. And there may be various constraints. The obvious constraint is obviously the budget, but there might be other constraints. They may want to reach a certain demographic. They may want to have certain mix of type of users they show it to. They may want to show at most a certain number of impressions to the same users within a certain time period. To solve this problem, we have to first define a proper and well-defined mathematical formulation. So it brings me to this, which is the most technical slide. So some terminology. First, we have the total cost. So that's the total amount the advertiser will have to pay for those impressions that are buying where we are showing ads for them. The total number of clicks is then obviously the total number of clicks that they will get out of those impressions. Many impressions are not being clicked on, so many ads are being shown, and they don't have any return on investment for those. We define the effective cost per click, which is the ratio of cost over the total click count, so it's the average cost per click. So the optimization problem is to maximize the total number of clicks for this budget they have provided, subject to one or more constraints. And then the budget, and they may have a constraint on the that the effective or average cost per click should be at most something. All right, so this is a problem. It can be rewritten into a form that engineers and mathematicians refer to as a linear program. It's something that sort of people in that hard science, they know how to solve. There's a textbook solution to this. However, some challenges with this problem is that in online advertising, this is an extremely high-dimensional problem. We may deal with hundreds of thousands of advertisers, hundreds of thousands of publishers. We are talking about hundreds of millions, and when we are talking about the Chinese market, we may talk about billions of internet users. So that textbook solution that you learn when you go to college doesn't apply, it breaks down. So, and that's the solution that I will refer to as the classical solution. So the classical solution is to solve this by putting into that standard form and solve it in a centralized manner. The problem then is it doesn't scale well. So we are dealing with the massive number of users. We can't solve it in a timely manner. Another problem is that that solution doesn't learn from its mistakes, which is a major problem as well. When users change their behavior online, the system needs to adapt to that, and the centralized and classical solution doesn't deal with that well. It also doesn't adopt well to a changing competitive landscape. So think about it that we have other bidders, we have other advertisers that are submitting bids for different impressions, and as they change their bids, then our advertiser needs to adjust to that. So when some user may become more expensive to show an ad to, we need to look for opportunities elsewhere. And because of those limitations, in practice, it turns out that it does involve a lot of human intervention. So if you want to have an ad optimization platform that is scalable and autonomous, you have to look for something else. And there are, in fact, many small companies that they have a promising solution based on this approach that have good growth trajectories, but at some point their approach breaks down because they can't keep growing, it doesn't scale. So that makes them fail as a business. And this brings us then to the alternative solution, and that's something based on feedback control. And let me first explain what feedback control is. So feedback control, you can think of it as a hidden technology because it's all around you. You wouldn't be able to use your mobile phone if it wasn't for the feedback control. You wouldn't be able to take your flight back to Beijing if it wasn't for that. You have it in your dishwasher, in your air conditioner, and you even have it in your human body. The immune system is a biological feedback system. When you get sick, you start to produce more white blood cells. And when you get better, this excess amount will stop. And I wouldn't be able to stand here up straight if I didn't have a feedback system in my ear. Another example here is the cruise controller. So if you look to the left, you have a desired speed coming in. So what the feedback controller is doing is that it's comparing that desired speed with a measured speed. And that difference, the error, is being used in the cruise controller to decide if you should open or close the throttle. And that will then accelerate or deaccelerate the car. And with that means you can adjust to different wind conditions and when you hit an upward slope, etc. And exactly the same principle can be applied in online advertising and in content distribution. So in the bottom chart, I show what it would work if you have as an objective to deliver a budget smoothly. You look at the desired spending, you compare it with the actual spending, and if you're not spending your budget in fall, then you will increase your bid price. You lift the bid prices slightly, and then you see how it responds. And if you over-deliver, you reduce the bid prices slightly. And this approach can be used to handle a lot of different constraints. And the most nice thing about it is that it can be implemented in an extremely scalable manner. So that was the sort of major flaw of the classical solution. So it's scalable, but it also learns from its mistakes because it does look at the error. It also then very well adapts to a changing competitive landscape, and as a result of the above, it requires very little human intervention. So just to give an example of how this is applied in practice, this is a campaign, real data, and the top chart shows the spend, each bar shows the spend in individual days. You have the blue line that represents the desired spending, and so you want to hit that line as well as possible. The second chart shows the hourly number of clicks and the daily number of clicks. So the bars are the daily number of clicks, and the red curve is the hourly. The bottom chart shows the effective cost per click. So the red vertical line demonstrates when we're switching from two different modes of the feedback-based solution. So before January 27, we were using feedback control only to handle the pacing. And we can see in the top chart that we are tracking that blue line pretty well. And we keep doing that after we switch to mode number 2. And in mode number 2, we have two objectives. We do want to spend the budget evenly, but we also want to maximize the total number of clicks that we get out of the budget. And the maximization of number of clicks we can see in the second chart, where after January 27th, the click count increases dramatically. And that is also represented in the third plot, which shows the average cost per click that also went up. So that's to demonstrate, and the time doesn't permit that I show more examples on that, but this is in a nutshell what the feedback control-based ad campaign management is doing. So finally, I want to just give you my projection into the future, and feedback control, like I said, it's a hidden technology. It's all the way around us, and a lot of technological progress in recent years that would not have been possible if it wasn't for feedback control. I mean, you can find numerous examples within robotics, medicine, telecommunication, and so forth. And all of those wouldn't be possible otherwise. And feedback control was first, it has a long tradition, but even one of the early successes was motorized flights. The Wright brothers, I mean, more than 100 years ago, they realized kind of the importance of feedback control. So it's the success of what they did is very much thanks to feedback control. And I expect to see the same trajectory of feedback control in the space of online advertising and new media. That by incorporating feedback control as a major component in all of other systems involving big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so forth, you can enhance the exploration exploitation, which means that you can more effectively figure out which ad or which content goes best to what user. You can also handle multi-objective optimization when you have an ad campaign. You have a publisher that has a lot of different objectives that they want to achieve. Then by incorporating feedback control, you can handle that much better. You can also handle constraints much better than in many other approaches. If you have a desire to change the objectives frequently, you can anticipate a much more rapid and automated way of handling that. So finally, I want to just show you a quote that I like. It's a quote that is old. I mean, it's 100 years old or so. And it deals with advertising, but I think that it very much captures in a nutshell what we're dealing with also today in online advertising. And it shows that half of the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The problem is I don't know which half. So we have to figure out where should we spend the money. Thank you very much.